Welcome to Aligned and Soulful Leadership. My name is Kavita Milwani, and I empower soulful, multicultural women of color to opulently shine their light without the hustle. I truly believe you can fulfill your soul's desire without losing yourself, your health, or your life in the process. I know that you can ignite your confidence and know your worth, all while walking your divine, unique path. So in this podcast, I will dive deep into topics, challenges, and blocks that women of color experience as they rise up into their aligned life and work. My deep desire is that BIPOC women can lead through their inner wisdom in a way that honors their soul. Are you ready to rise up as the leader you were born to be? Then this podcast is for you. Hello and welcome everyone to Aligned and Soulful Leadership. Today I have with me Vanessa Nixon, a traditional naturopath who has a doctorate in traditional naturopathy. I think I pronounced that correctly, and she can correct me later. She also has a master's in herbal medicine and certificates in aromatherapy, nutrition, homeopathy. There's a word, that word again, homeopathy, reflexology, iridology, and she's a professional Middle Eastern dance performer and instructor, and the founder and CEO of Natural Look Mineral Makeup. She works with women in midlife to help them to thrive in body, mind, and spirit naturally. Welcome, Vanessa.
Thank you, Kavita. I am so honored to be here with you. I'm excited to be speaking with you today.
Yes, I'm excited for you to be here and for you to share your wisdom with the listeners. And so please correct my pronunciation first. I know we went over it before, but you know,
No, you did an awesome job. It was perfect, and a lot of people get hung up on that. There are a couple of ways to pronounce it: naturopathy or naturopathy, and homeopathy. So you did a perfect job.
okay,
No worries.
great. I'm glad. Okay, good. So let's talk a little bit about your journey and what got you into what you're doing now. You have so much training and so much knowledge. So I think a great place to start would be, what started you on this path? Because I'm willing to bet that when you were 8 or 9 years old, this is not what you thought you'd be doing.
No, it is actually not at all. It was not on my radar at all. I was raised in a very traditional, conventional family. My mother was a nurse, and so we were very
Mhm.
deeply steeped in the traditional Western medical model. However, when I was a teenager, I found myself getting sick with every cold that came around, every flu bug, every cold that came around, I would catch it. And looking back, I realized, one of the reasons was because I had a really poor diet growing up. I ate a lot of
Mm.
junk food, a lot of packaged processed foods. And so by the time I was 14, those colds started turning into bronchitis. And over the
Mm.
next 6 years, it developed into chronic illness. And I was sick more often than I was well. I was coming down with bronchitis 4 to 6 times a year. And it
Wow.
was taking, around 2 months to recover from each bout. So really, I was sick all the time. And it was
Mm.
just continuing to progressively get worse. And at the point where I was going into my 20s, I was on antibiotics consistently every day.
Mm. Okay.
And my health was continuing to decline. And in my early 20s, a friend noticed that I was taking these antibiotics every day. And my friend, asked what is that all about? And I explained my story, and he said, "Well, is it working?" And
Mhm.
I had never been asked that question before. No doctor, no adult, no, nobody had ever posed that question to me before. And I had never asked myself because I had not known that there were any alternatives.
Mm-hmm.
And when I thought about that question, it opened me up to the possibility that, okay, if this isn't working, and it's obviously not, maybe there is another option. And my friend said, well, you know what? When I get sick, I see an herbalist. And if you're interested, I could introduce you.
Mm.
And so, within a few weeks, of course, the next cold came around and started going into bronchitis. And so I went to the herbalist, and she gave me an herbal formula for respiratory issues.
Mm-hmm.
And I was completely recovered in 2 weeks. So
Wow.
my recovery time went from 8 weeks to 2 weeks, and I was amazed. And I
Mm-hmm.
was hooked from that point on. I was so intrigued with how there could be this other alternative solution out there that I had never heard of, that nobody else that I had spoken to all of those years had ever mentioned. And so I wanted to know everything there was to know about natural medicine from that point on. And that's really where my healing journey and my educational journey in natural medicine began.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting how sometimes an angel comes. I call them like little angels come and just drop a hint. Well,
Yeah,
and it starts you to think in a different way, right? You start
exactly.
to consider something and just the question like, is it working?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
amazing so then that started you on your own education and on your journey. And so what did you do next?
Well, the first thing that I did is I started checking books out of the library on
Okay,
natural
yes.
health and started to educate myself. And after a year or two of doing a lot of self education, I started looking for a mentor.
Hmm.
And I was starting to change my lifestyle already, especially in terms of nutrition. It became very clear that at that point that was what led to my health issues and my chronic
Mhm.
illness. Um,
Yes.
so I had started working on the nutritional aspects myself, but it was the herbal medicine that had really intrigued me, and I knew I needed a mentor in order to really get the education and the understanding of how to use herbal medicine not only for myself, but perhaps for my family, friends, and maybe clients if I decided in the future that that's the career path I wanted to choose. And so I found a mentor who lived close to me at the time. I was in Vancouver, Washington, and I found out about a very well respected, world renowned herbalist living in Portland, Oregon, by the name of
Mhm.
Cascade Anderson Geller.
Okay.
And I studied with her for 2 years. And it was exactly what I was looking for. And the amount of education that I got in those 2 years was enormous. And
Mhm.
so I really attribute a lot of what I do today to her mentoring.
Mhm. Amazing. Yeah, so how did you find her?
Back in the day, you couldn't just go on the internet. I
Yes,
didn't even
exactly,
have
yeah.
a computer at that time. And so, in one of the books that I had um, checked out from the library, in the back of the book, there was a list of resources. And
Mm.
one of the lists was of uh, herbal teachers. And she
Okay.
was on that list. And because she was close to me, I just literally I wrote a letter and mailed it to her. I reached out through snail
Yeah,
mail.
wow, yeah.
And she got back to me first, before, and I reached out to a number of people, but there was just something about her offering, and the way she taught her and structured her classes, that I just knew that that was going to be the right choice for me.
Yeah. So following your intuition. Maybe you didn't call
Yes,
it that at that time, but
yes,
yes, that's what it sounds like.
it
Amazing.
is. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
So you got some intensive training.
I got some intensive
Yeah.
training, and at that time, I was in my mid-20s, and I was still kind of just feeling out who I was and who I wanted to
Mhm.
be. And while I loved the education that I was getting, I wasn't feeling quite confident to take on the role of dealing with other people's health.
Mhm.
And so, but I really wanted to use that education. And so, what I decided to do is to create my own business, crafting um, herbal handcrafted soaps
Oh,
and sell them at
okay.
the farmers market.
Mhm.
And I did that for 9 years, and my line expanded. I started with the handcrafted herbal soaps, and then I added in herbal body care products and facial care products and bath products. And over the years at the farmers market, I had a very loyal clientele. And the one
Mhm.
thing that I kept hearing them say to me was, you have all of these wonderful personal care products. You've got the soaps, the body care, the facial care. But what do we do for really, truly healthy, natural makeup?
Mm.
And at that time, there really was not, there wasn't much of that around. You had to look really, really hard
Mhm.
to find a really pure, natural makeup line. And so I took about a year in research and development, and I came up with my own handcrafted line of makeup, and it's called Natural Look Mineral Makeup. I
Mm.
debuted that line at the farmers market in 2003, and
Okay.
within 6 months, it became 90% of my sales.
Mhm.
And so I just took that opportunity to streamline my product offerings, and I just focused on the mineral makeup from then on. And I ended up moving around the world a couple of times with my growing family. And so that was a good opportunity to just focus on one thing
Mhm.
for a while, which I did. And I ended up living in Japan for a year and continued being able to offer this, really clean, healthy, natural makeup online.
Mhm.
And which at the time was like, an amazing thing that you could do this from anywhere in the world.
Yes,
um,
yeah.
and when I came back to the States, I really felt like I wanted to get back to my roots and get back to actually working with herbs. And
Mhm.
so that's when I decided to kind of expand my education in natural healing. And so I ended up getting my diploma through the British Institute of Homeopathy,
Mhm.
and got my diploma in homeopathy. And then I decided to just go ahead and round out my education and get my doctorate as a traditional naturopath. And, and as you mentioned before, I got a lot of different certificates along the way. So I have a really wide range of modalities.
Mhm.
But really, I love just kind of getting back to the basics, getting back to the core, which for me is nutrition and herbal medicine, and then being able to add in these other more energetic modalities. And for me, that might be homeopathy or flower essences or movement. Movement is a big part of what I do these days. Um, I actually have kind of developed a three-pronged approach to a healthy natural lifestyle. And the first one is natural health, which we've talked a little bit about. And
Mhm.
then the second one is the natural beauty, which we've also talked a little bit about.
Mhm.
But the third one that is just really near and dear to my heart is natural movement.
Mm.
And um, one of the reasons that that's so special to me, and I find it so valuable to other women, especially women in midlife, is because I have always been a dancer throughout my entire life. I started dancing as a toddler, and
Mm-hmm.
I studied a variety of dance forms. But when I was 20, started taking a belly dance class. And it was just kind of for fun. It was to learn a new modality. But what I found was that it was probably the most empowering thing that I had done in my life at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I find that belly dance, as opposed to many other dance forms, which are very highly structured and are not always, um, the movements are not always aligned with what is the healthiest for your body.
Sure. Yes.
um,
Mm-hmm.
Especially in like, and I'm not putting them down or anything, but dance forms like ballet are very hard on your body,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of dancers that I know have had to stop dancing because of injuries um, that they incurred in their dance journey. But belly dance is a traditional cultural dance from the Middle East that was created for a woman's body. And each of the
Mm-hmm.
moves was designed to help a woman's body, to assist her body through the various changes that she goes through, from menarche through pregnancy, postpartum, and menopause. And it's very body positive, and it just allows you to accept your body for what it is, for the beautiful thing that it is. And through learning the moves and dancing in community with other women, I find that it helps women to get in touch with their bodies and to love their bodies in a way that they may not have been able to before. So I think that
Mm-hmm.
that's a really important part of a woman's journey, especially when they're in midlife and their bodies might be changing and doing things that they're not
Mm-hmm.
familiar with, and they're like, "What is going on?" And having such an empowering practice like this can really allow you to tap into that intuition and their own inner healer, and allow you to listen to your body and do what your body is telling you is what it needs, and what it needs to be healthy in that particular moment, in that particular stage of life.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I think there's a lot of there are misconceptions about what belly dancing is, especially
Hmm.
I mean, in the Western world, our exposure can be limited depending on
Hmm.
what culture you grew up in. And so to understand it from that way, that it is a way to honor a woman's body and the way
Hmm.
it's meant to move, and that's actually a very different perspective, right, than a lot of
It
people have
is.
heard.
It is,
Yeah.
and so many people tell me that, and of course, I didn't know that either when I first started belly dancing. But not only was it created to to honor the woman's
Mhm.
body, but traditionally, a belly dance was performed only by women, only
Mhm.
for women.
Hmm.
Women would get together in community, the young girls and the mothers and the grandmothers, and they would teach and learn from each other and perform this dance at various celebrations. But it was only performed for women, so it's truly a woman's dance. And the actual dance, the arc of the dance, tells the story of womanhood. The first
Okay.
part of the dance represents childhood, the second represents the coming of age and motherhood, and then the last part of the dance celebrates the mature woman. And so it really is all about a woman's life, and
Mhm.
helping her to transition through this journey in a healthy, happy way.
Yes. So, I mean, the body positivity piece is so important, and
Hmm.
I've seen more and more of that, um, in the greater media of the body positivity, and it is also um, it can be just defined as weight, right? Of accepting your weight. And
Hmm.
so, what I'm hearing your definition of body positivity is expanding on that to accept your body in totality versus just like the size that you're in, right? And so, it's expanding
Exactly.
that. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah, it's expanding that to include, the age you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you know, wherever you are on your journey as a woman
Yes.
through this form of dance and healing, because I really do consider it to be a form of healing. It's allowing you just to really tap into your body and to honor it wherever it is, whatever it looks like, whatever it feels like.
Mm-hmm.
And it encourages that deep connection with your body so that you can then embody the rest of your healing journey, whatever else you are doing in your life, with nutrition, with other modalities. This sort of natural movement allows you to really embody that healing.
Yes. Yeah. And so then this, so you're not talking about teaching belly dancing just as let's go to a belly dancing class, right? You're talking about using this as a way to open your body up, open your intuitive guidance, and then also use that in conjunction with what you put in your body, good nutrition, right? And
Hmm.
those other things. So tell us more about how you would, if someone came to you and said, Vanessa, help me, I am, I don't know what to do now. Why would they come to you, and how do you tell us a little bit of a peek of how they would work with you or how
Yeah,
you would work with them?
absolutely. I work with women in a couple of different ways.
Mhm.
I One thing that I love to do is to work with women individually, one on one,
Mhm.
and that way we can really go deep and get the kind of major transformations that can really be life altering, life changing,
Mhm.
and allow a woman to, step forward and make the impact in the world that she wants to make and pursue her passions and, bring her gifts to the world. So, if I'm working with a woman one on one, we might work together for, let's say, 6 months, and we would go back to the basics. We would start with what you're eating, what you're consuming.
Mhm.
That old cliche, "You are what you eat," sounds very simple and kind of trite, but it really is true.
Mhm.
If you're putting junk in your body, then your organs, your body's going to become junk because that's all it
Mhm.
has to work with. And I found that out firsthand in my
Yes.
uh,
Yeah.
in my early years. And so we start there. We start with nutrition and we get a really good foundation going. And then from there, we move on to different energy practices. We move on to the
Mhm.
movement piece, and we almost always bring in some form of herbal medicine because I believe that food is medicine, and a lot
Yes.
of herbs
Mhm.
can be used like food. There
Mhm.
are some herbs that need to be used strictly as medicine because of the components of each herb is different, but many herbs can be used as medicine, and so that is something that I go back to, is using food and herbs as your medicine. And so those are kind of the basic components. There are
Mhm.
many other areas that we might go into because every woman is individual and unique,
Yes. Yeah.
and every woman needs something a little bit different. And that's one of the reasons why I chose to, study so many different modalities, because I wanted to have a lot of tools that I could offer
Mhm.
to women that I work with. And another really big component that I focus on in my work with women is to help them to feel confident in creating their own health, giving them the tools so that they know when they have a symptom, when they get sick, that they know how to use their own wisdom, tap into their own intuition to heal themselves. And they don't feel like they're beholden to always, have to look to somebody else to to create health.
Mm-hmm. So you're
Um,
empowering them.
right, right.
Mm-hmm.
That's a big part of my work, is to empower women to be able to take responsibility for their own health and the health of their families, and to
Mm-hmm.
really have to be able to tap into that wisdom that we all have as women.
Yes.
In generations past, we all knew what to do when we weren't feeling well, or how to maintain a healthy lifestyle. That information was passed down to us,
Mm-hmm.
either orally, or sometimes it was through written works, but that was something that was very alive
Mm-hmm.
in the past. And I think that we all do have that ancestral knowledge that
Mm-hmm.
still is there. We just, in recent generations, have not been encouraged to tap into that. And so that's something that I really want women to understand, is that they do have that intuition. They do have that inner knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And, sometimes just having a guide, somebody, a mentor, like I had a mentor when I first started learning herbal medicine. Sometimes that's all you need to help you to tap into that inner knowing. And I
Yeah,
think
and
that really is the
receiving.
key. Yeah,
Mm-hmm. And receiving the help and support from a guide, right? To help to relearn those things.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's about
Yeah.
relearning. Yeah,
And as you know, go ahead.
and then the other way that I like to work with women is through
Mm-hmm.
community offerings. And
Okay.
I am about to launch a membership program. So this is a new way for women to get together and be able to tap into just what we're talking about, and
Mm-hmm.
relearn this kind of ancestral knowledge, in collaboration and in community with one another. And I think for women, that is another key that is so
Yeah.
important to the health, um, of our own bodies as we go through the transitions that we do throughout our lives, but also
Mm-hmm.
for our families. To be able to be confident to say, yes, I know how to help my family be healthy.
Yeah.
And doing that with other women who are on a similar path or have been where you are, I think is a really important part of that.
Yeah. Community is so important, especially now where a
Hmm.
lot of us have been and felt isolated.
Right.
And I feel this energy of almost rebuilding and reprioritizing how we want to spend our time.
Hmm.
Right. And so before this whole awakening COVID situation, whatever words you want to use to describe it, there was a sense that a lot of people were in a busyness phase and
Hmm.
just, going through each day and getting the things done. For a lot of people, it's a time of awakening and stopping.
Hmm.
And so, what is really important to me? How do I really want to live my life? Right. And so, making those choices. And so, the fact that you're creating a community, and so if women are feeling drawn to what you're saying and, feeling aligned, even if the little part of their intuitive guidance is like, I want to find out more. Right. So,
Hmm.
I'm going to encourage them to do that. And of course, we'll have information, and I'm going to ask you more about how they can get in touch with you.
Uh-huh.
And so, I do have a couple questions though before we get to that.
Sure.
Okay. So, why do you think that it is important for a woman who is in leadership, which you are a definition of a woman in leadership with your businesses, and just how you made your decisions, and even your examples of, oh, I just started selling soap at a farmer's market, right? So for you it seemed so natural and almost matter of fact. It takes a lot of courage to do something like that, right?
Mm.
Especially in the time that you did it,
Mm. Yeah.
right?
Right.
And
Right.
so, because at that time that was not a big deal, farmers markets were not the thing they are now, right? So
Right.
we can all forget that. And even what you talked about with the natural makeup.
Hmm.
And so, since you are and have been in leadership for years, right? Why do you think it's important for women in leadership to take care of their health and to be in
Mm.
alignment through the dancing and through the nutrition and through all the community and the things that you're offering?
Mm. That's a really great question, and I love the fact that you brought up that uh, I have stepped into leadership in various
Hmm.
ways through my life, and I thank you for framing it that way because for a lot of my life, I really didn't see that.
Mm.
I was pursuing my passions and I wanted to do it in a way that felt good to me, but that's really
Hmm.
as far as I looked. But as I am now in the phase of my life where I've gone through menopause and I
Hmm.
am finding out that this is such a potent time in a woman's life to really go deep inside and
Hmm.
figure out what it is that we want to bring to the world
Yeah.
and how we want to step into our leadership. I have been thinking about this question a lot more
Hmm.
deeply. And for me, what I have found is that a lot of women feel invisible in
Mm.
our society, because of the way our society is structured. It's very,
Yes.
patriarchal. And I also have found that a lot of women fear being visible.
Oh, okay.
And that's kind of the flip side of it. We feel invisible and we don't like it, but we fear being visible. We fear being seen for
Hmm.
who we are authentically. And
Okay.
especially women who um, might resonate with the more alternative type of lifestyle, healing, or spirituality. Um, I think that in our society, that's not always accepted, especially
Hmm.
when you're talking about being a leader in your community. It's, oh,
Yes.
that's a little woo, that's a little weird, it's out there. And so
Yes.
I think we fear being seen as
Hmm.
healers, as wise women. And I think we also have that ancestral memory of knowing that in
Yes.
the past, that has been very dangerous to step out in your leadership and be seen as
Hmm.
who you authentically are. And so that's been a big thing that I know I have worked on very deeply in the last few years. And I see a lot of women in that same space where they know they really need to be seen. They need to allow themselves to be seen. And I think that there's this piece about vulnerability. It's really difficult to be vulnerable enough to be seen and heard and to really speak our truth. But that's to me what leadership is. It's
Hmm.
being able to be vulnerable and to bring your gifts forth, those things that make you uniquely you, authentically you, to bring those forth with vulnerability and with compassion.
Hmm.
And I think that that's something that women in midlife often are struggling with. I think that's the piece that sometimes is holding them back and contributing to the health symptoms that they have is
Hmm.
because there's this block. There's this stuck energy around being seen and being heard. And so I find that going deep and just really looking at that, um, and being able to move through that, being able to accept that, yes, this is something that is that many, if not most women are
Hmm.
dealing with. And we can process that and we can be afraid of that. We can feel the fear and we can move through it and we can let it go and we can step forward authentically and be leaders in our communities with our unique gifts and using
Yes.
our authentic voice.
Yes, and I do, and it's so important that women who are in leadership have communities where they can be among other women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And be vulnerable at a different level than they can when they're stepping into a leadership role. Right.
Right.
So as the CEO and CFO and every CMO of your business, right?
Mm-hmm.
um, it's this idea that, okay, you have to do the things, right? You have to get the things done. You have to show up a certain way. And then how can you now show up and be supported and be seen in
Mm.
a different way through the community? And so I
Right.
love that you're creating that, and that piece of the, when you said the fear of being really seen, even
Mm-hmm.
though, that part gave me, like, I could feel the chills in my body,
Mm-hmm.
because I know that that's something that I have struggled with, and it's been a challenge on and off in my life,
Mm-hmm.
because it's the idea of, culturally, it's not okay to be loud.
Mm.
Well, that was what I was taught. It's like a woman's place in the world is to serve her husband.
Mm.
A woman's place in the world is to be the mother. Woman's place in the world is not to be loud or to question authority or to be a leader,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so that even goes against the conditioning,
Right.
right? Cultural conditioning. So that, and then the woo piece is really interesting, because I am in Silicon Valley, and I
Mm-hmm.
often feel like I have to hide that part of myself.
Right. Right.
So I can see that when you said that, I was like, oh yeah, there's some of that for me too. So if the listeners are feeling that, they can start to get in touch with you. But so how I usually want to transition into the resource reveal, which is
Mm-hmm.
the segment where I ask you for a resource that has helped you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then I'm going to ask you more about what you have coming up and how people can find you, because I can talk about this for another hour. So they're going to have to, they're going to have to find out more and be in touch with you to go deeper into this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is one resource you want to share with
Sure.
the
Sure.
listeners?
Yes, I would love to answer that question. And first, I just want to honor you for your journey to leadership, because you are obviously a wonderful leader for women. And having come from that background that you described, that's not easy. So I know that you have put a lot of work and energy into that, and I just want to honor that. And
Oh, thank you.
you're
Yes.
welcome. And one resource that really, really helped me, especially in the beginning, as I was feeling this call to live my life more in tune with nature, was the book series that the herbalist Susan Weed put out. It's called
Mm,
the Wise Woman series. And
okay.
I think there are 3 or 4 books in that series. But the thing that I really love most about that series in particular, because there's so many herbal books
Mm-hmm.
that have really influenced me and that I love. I have hundreds and hundreds of herbal books in my bookshelf, but this was one of the first series that I read when I was in my 20s. And Susan is able to teach herbalism.
Mm-hmm.
This is this herb, this is how you use it, this is how you identify it, this is what it's good for, all those practical things. But she's able to weave in stories and spirituality and the key piece of connecting to the
Mm,
plants on
okay.
a deep personal level, and being
Nice.
able to find your particular plant allies. Some plants um, are where we just have an affinity with more so than other plants, even though 2 plants might have the same actions. One plant
Mm-hmm.
you just don't resonate with, it just doesn't work very well for you, but another plant you might just automatically know, oh yes, this plant is going to help me heal, not only on a physical level but on an emotional, mental, and spiritual level as well. And so Susan really brings that into her writing and into her teaching in just a really lovely, nurturing way. And so
Mm-hmm.
for people who are kind of in that place where they are starting their journey with natural healing modalities, I think that's a
Mhm.
wonderful place to start.
Okay, great. That sounds amazing. So I'll
Yeah.
put that in the show notes. And so now, how can people get in touch with you and tell us about what you have coming up as well? So,
Thank you. Yes, I do
mhm,
have. Uh, I generally have events coming up every month or two, and I do
mm,
have an event coming up on Thursday, December 2nd.
okay.
It's at 5 p.m. Pacific time, and it's called Tap into Your Inner Healer, Three
Mm.
Steps to Creating Your Natural Medicine Chest.
Oh,
And
nice.
so it's very similar to some of the things that we've been talking about already. And it's going to be a very experiential event. I'm calling it a virtual retreat because we're really going to be doing a lot of like hands-on things together, and I think it's going to be a really fun event.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. And so if people are listening afterwards, they can still get in touch with you, right? If they
Yes.
can't make the event. So,
Hmm.
wow. Yeah, so
Yes.
tell
So
them
I
how they
have a
can get in touch
couple.
with you.
Yeah, I have a couple of websites.
Mhm.
Herbsofgrace.com is my website for my natural look mineral makeup.
Mhm.
And then herbsofgracehealingarts.com is my website that encompasses all three areas of my business: the natural health, the natural movement, and the natural beauty. And so there's contact information on both of those websites. I also have um, pages on Facebook
Mhm.
for both the Herbs of Grace Natural Look Mineral Makeup and the Herbs of Grace Healing Arts, as well as a Facebook group. I have a Facebook group that is very engaged and thriving, and we have a lot of fun there. It's called You Can Feel Marvelous in Midlife Naturally.
Okay, nice.
And then you can also get a hold of me through Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter. I have accounts with all those social media outlets.
Okay. So just, whatever people resonate with, I'll have all those links available. And so is there anything else you want to share?
Um, well, thank you so much for, providing those links for everybody. I appreciate that. And I'm just really thankful that you are providing this outlet and this service for women and women's leadership, because I think it is something that is really crucial, especially in this time in history, for women
Hmm.
to be able to acknowledge their gifts, and that acknowledging and bringing forth those gifts is one way that they can really provide leadership and help their communities to grow and evolve.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And thank you for coming and sharing your wisdom and your journey. And yeah, and your event, if people can make it, that sounds great. Your retreat. And if not, they can stay in touch with you. If they're on Facebook, your group. So there's so many ways, right? Just use your intuitive guidance if you're listening to this and see what is the best way for you. So thanks again. And all of you, take good care until next time. Bye.
Thank you, Kavita. Bye.
Thank you for joining me for Aligned and Soulful Leadership. I was inspired to start this podcast as a way to empower women of color to rise up into their leadership. So remember, I will have all the resources I mentioned during this episode available in the show notes at alignedandsoulfulpodcast.com. I'm your host, Kavita, and if you enjoyed this podcast, please take a moment to follow or subscribe on the platform of your choice. Until next time, bye.